Hi there. In this optional section, I'm going to talk you through some methods you can use to prepare a manuscript for recording. I strongly recommend getting a DOCX version of a book whenever possible, or at least something that can be converted to it, like a Google Doc. Although it's easy to mark up a PDF, you won't be able to use a lot of my tricks and shortcuts without a DOCX file, although you can use a website like pdf2doc.com, I think, to convert a PDF to a DOCX file very easily. So I do have a semi-automated process using a web application that I typically now use. But I still also use a part of a manual process that I'm about to show you beforehand, as it doubles up as a very efficient way of checking that dialogue doesn't have any missing quote marks, since if any quote marks are missing, you'll end up having, obviously, incorrectly marked up text. So I start by using Word's advanced find and replace function to change all dialogue to be a different colour. I prefer burgundy, so it's easier to spot. So open up the advanced find and replace window, which is under Edit, Find, Advanced Find and Replace. Once you've got it open, go to the Replace tab and find quote mark, star, quote mark. Click the arrow to expand and make sure use wildcards is ticked. So this will search for everything between quote marks. In the replace box, you need to type in the following. Why it's this, I don't know, but this corresponds to the contents of the find box. So at this point, we are finding something and replacing it with itself. Then, if you come to the bottom here and click Format, Font, Font Color, More Colors, and try and pick a nice, I prefer to use a nice kind of dark red, a burgundy color. Click OK. Now what's going to happen is it's going to find everything between quote marks and replace it with itself, but burgundy. So when you click Replace All, the text that it finds is going to be replaced. We made 1,250 replacements. Don't close the window. It's better. You're going to want to refer to it in a second. Now you're going to scroll down and see if any large blocks of text are highlighted in dark red incorrectly. So I've scrolled down to here and I've spotted a bit where dialogue here is in black, should be in burgundy, and the next time dialogue appears within quote marks, it is in burgundy, which means there's a missing quote mark. Here's the missing quote mark. So note down where that is. It's on page 52. Undo the replace all, which slightly annoyingly will put you back on the page you started on. Go to the page that you've noted down, which was page 52, and fix the missing quote mark. Now when you click Replace All again, you can go through and check again. I know this seems like it's expending time for little benefit, but there is an important reason for doing this. If you do want to use my web app to mark up your book, which saves a lot of time, you do need the dialogue to be correctly identified by the application. So it's fairly important, not essential, but fairly important that you go through this step to validate the accuracy of the punctuation. To be honest, the web app will cope even with missing quote marks and things. What it won't cope with is when there's wildly inconsistent use of doubles and singles interchangeably and things like that. Just a minor segue. I have always thought it would be great if there was a quick way to get a list of characters before you've even read the book for the first time. It makes it a lot easier to then note down characteristics of the characters down against their name while trying to develop voices for them, etc. I have tried word macros, I've tried AI, and unfortunately nothing works well enough. In the end, you either will need to just make a list of characters while you read, or you need to use my web application, which is extraordinarily unlikely to actually miss a single character's name. Let's move on to highlights. For me, at least, the absolute best method of identifying which character is speaking when is by using a lot of different highlighter colors. And I found it much more effective than underlying character names or putting initials in the margin. I found that having a good highlighting system helps you easily spot who's speaking at a glance, and after a while you start to identify particular colours with particular voices or accents within a book. If I'm prepping a book manually, I do one of two things based on the length. So if it's less than about 10,000 words, or if it has a very small number of characters, I tend to use the Notes app on my phone and jot down the names and features of characters in a really basic list, along with a colour plan I plan to highlight them with. So, for example, this is the book I've just been showing you on screen. Here I've listed the characters, listed one or two words to describe what accent I'm using, which I then refer to for the voice reference later on, and the colour that I intend to highlight them in. In longer cases, I use a chapter matrix, which looks like this. This might look like overkill for most people, and honestly, it is overkill for most people, but it's a tool I've historically used to track which characters appear in which chapters, over here, how many chapters each character appears in, what colour I'm highlighting each character's dialogue in, and any other notes about the character tends to be in a slightly later version, like this, in which I've stripped out some of the content so that I can just stay focused on the parts I need to use. To actually then highlight the document, I use an app called Nebo. There's a major reason I use Nebo rather than iAnnotate or anything else similar. I know a lot of people rave about iAnnotate. It is because Nebo seems to be quite unique in allowing one to scroll up and down with a mouse without ever clicking on the window or having to click and drag up and down, which of course changes the focus of away from Reaper and into the app that you're using. So just a simple scroll up and down with two fingers will make the pages scroll up and down. But while doing that, Reaper stays in focus, which means all the shortcut keys continue to work without any problems. Even when I use my web app to automate the highlighting, I still convert the end product to PDF and use Nebo for that, in case I need to add any more highlights, if I need to add pronunciation notes, reminders, comments on characters, or anything like that. Another key benefit of Nebo is the sheer number of custom highlight colors I've added. So I'm showing you my installation of Nebo on my laptop here, but on my iPad and iPhone, I have a lot more colors set up, and I've taken a screenshot to show you here. This is the set of colors that I currently have set up in Nebo on my iPad. Now, if all this sounds like a lot of manual work, don't worry. I've developed a web app, as I keep mentioning, that automates much of the preparation process, and you can find it here at scripter.streamlit.app. It goes to sleep if it hasn't been used by anyone for a day or two, so you might need to click a button and wait a minute, maybe 2 or even 3, before it's ready to use. So here is how to use it. Start by browsing for a DOCX file. I'm going to upload again the same book I was showing you earlier, Traveller's Legacy. Then click Start Processing, and the dialogue is extracted into a -quotes.txt file. I will show you what it will be named as here, Traveller's Legacy -quotes.txt, but it isn't necessary right now to download that. This step was more about making sure it's then loaded into the script app for the next step to work. Now click Continue. And what you'll see here is you'll see some text in bold, set within the context of the text around it. At the bottom again, it says what line of dialogue it is, line 1, and you'll see this grey box here. So you can put one of 5 things in this box. You can put a name, you can put the word error, you can put undo, skip, and exit. If you do put a name, as you will be doing most of the time, don't worry if it's something like Mr. X or Dr. Y and you do or don't put a full stop or a period after the abbreviation. The script will normalize the entry. So most of the time you'll be writing a name. So here, this is introduced by Caspian Seraphine. So I'm just going to note that it's spoken by Caspian. Updated line 1 with speaker Caspian. Next line is Stephen. Let's say that this has incorrectly detected dialogue, and this isn't actually dialogue. It's, say, the name of a movie that just happened to have quote marks around it. This tends to happen most often with italicized text, which can be slightly over-detected. If that happens, type in error, and it attributes a quasi-speaker called error, but what it actually does is it just doesn't highlight or change the text color of the dialogue within the document. If you want to skip a line because you're not sure right now who said it and you want to come back to it later, just type skip and it will skip along to the next one. If you've incorrectly written something, write undo and it will skip back to the last step that you actually wrote something other than skip. Once you've done the whole book, it will automatically go to the next step, but typically you won't do all of this in one go. So if you type exit instead, it will go to the next step. It will either bring up a list of character names here, which means you can start the next step, or it on occasion will hit a slight bug and tell you that you've already assigned all the colors, even if you haven't, in which case you can get to this screen by clicking Edit Speaker Colors. You can also click there anytime you want to change previously assigned colors. Once you are assigning colors, you've got a long list of highlights to pick from. Just note that down here, pale pink and light pink are the same color, and bright blue and dark blue are the same color as well. That exists for personal practical reasons to do with my workflow. I typically leave assigning colors until the end unless I have gone through and worked out exactly what color is going to be assigned to each character. Let's assign Caspian to red. Let's assign Stephen to yellow. As you can see, the page updates as you go on. Once done, you click Continue, and 3 or 4 things will be generated. First, you will see an HTML that has been generated, although to download it, you need to go to the bottom of the page and click Download HTML File. You will also see down here a button to download a JSON file for the speaker colors, a text file for the updated quotes list, and in rare circumstances, there will be another text file with a list of quotes that didn't appear to match up correctly and thus weren't highlighted. Always download the JSON file if you've updated any speaker colors since you last downloaded it, and download the updated quotes file regardless. If you refresh the page, even if a few hours have passed, the web application will go back to the beginning, but you can click Load Saved Progress at the top to go back to where you were. If it's been too long, however, your saved progress isn't automatically saved anymore. And in that case, when you upload the document at the start, you'll upload your document but you'll also upload the quotes file and you'll upload your saved speaker colors file. 3 more things to note before I talk a bit more about the HTML file. Firstly, if an unmatched quotes file has been generated, it's usually fairly obvious why a line hasn't matched. It's usually because of weird spaces or incorrect punctuation having been detected. So if that happens, open up your updated quotes text file and fix the issue manually within there. Secondly, if you have incorrectly attributed the wrong speaker to a line of dialogue and it was more than one step ago, you can't undo it using the undo entry. You'll need to go in and update it within the text file. And thirdly, it is often worth writing exit periodically in order to get to the final stage and save the files thus far before continuing on. If you do that and you've come to this page, then click Return to Step 2, and it will take you back to the speaker attribution page. It won't in this case because I've uploaded a completed quotes file. Finally, a couple of notes about the HTML file. Firstly, because it's an HTML, it doesn't have page numbers. If that bothers you, and it does bother me, then I recommend printing the HTML to PDF and adding page numbers, which I do using the header and footer tool in Adobe Acrobat. There are also 2 lists that get generated at the top of the HTML. The first of these is the complete character list, which shows all the detected characters and their assigned colors in the order they appear in the script, and it will always be preceded by unknown X lines, X%, to show how much of the document you have still to attribute. This is useful not only because it provides the identical structure that your voice reference should follow, but if you tend to use the same color for minor characters, and I tend to use silver for them, it allows you to realize if you've used a block of them together, in which case you might need to use a different color for one or more characters to prevent getting muddled mid-read. For example, I know that Veyre, Drone, and Malric do not appear in the same chapters, so it's not a problem. But if I knew that they did, this could be a problem. Similarly, these 4 characters do appear in the same chapter, but they all share a voice, and that is why they're all highlighted in the same color. The second list is the speaker ranking, which tracks how often each character speaks, and this is critically important for assigning voices, as naturally you want to use your strongest, most distinct voices, and the ones you can all be consistent with the most. You want to use them and reserve them for the most frequently appearing characters. For characters with just 1 line of dialogue, consistency is irrelevant, so you can choose their voice on the fly if you want, and for that reason, anyone with a single line is left off. It will only display down to the 2-line mark. Note too that this is your opportunity to double check if you've got a character appearing multiple times. For example, Mr. Tim Jones, you might have partly referenced him as Tim and partly as Mr. Jones, and you can go and fix that in the quotes file if you want. Once I've converted the HTML file to a PDF and added page numbers, I import it into Nebo, if I plan to add further notes, or if it's short, like an audition file, because I do use this for auditions, I then just work straight from the HTML without adding page numbers. That's it for document prep. See you soon.